If you are an Australian senior thinking about selling your fully paid off home, stop and watch this carefully, because one signature on a contract could change your Centrelink position faster than you expect. A lot of retirees believe that once the mortgage is gone, the home is simply safe, untouchable, and invisible to the age pension rules. And that is mostly true while it is still your principal home. But the moment that home is sold, the conversation can change completely. Suddenly, money that used to sit inside an exempt family home can become cash in the bank. And cash in the bank is exactly the kind of thing Centrelink pays attention to. This is where many older Australians get caught off guard. They sell with a plan to downsize, help the kids, move closer to family, or free up money for a better retirement. The sale goes through, the proceeds land in the account, and then the shock comes later when their age pension is reduced, reassessed, or flagged for review. Not because they did something wrong, but because nobody explained the timing, the exemptions, the deeming rules, and the traps that sit between settlement day and the purchase of the next home. So in this video, I am going to walk you through exactly why selling a paid-off home can trigger Centrelink changes. What part of the money may still be protected? What part may count against you? How the assets test and income test come into play, and the costly mistakes that can turn a smart downsizing move into a pension headache. And if you or someone you care about is thinking of selling in the next year, this video could save you thousands of dollars and a lot of unnecessary stress. Here is the most important starting point. Your principal home is generally exempt under the age pension assets test. That is why many retirees can live in a valuable home and still receive a pension, even if that home is worth far more than the cash limits that apply to other assets. But once you sell that home, Centrelink does not just look at what the property used to be. It starts looking at what the sale proceeds have become. And that is the key change. Your exempt home becomes money. Money can be assessed. Money can be deemed. Money can affect both your assets test and your income test. That is why selling a paid-off home can trigger Centrelink changes even when you are not trying to increase your lifestyle or become wealthier. You are simply changing the form of the asset, and Centrelink treats different forms of wealth very differently. Now, this is where some good news comes in. If you sell your principal home, and you genuinely intend to use some or all of the proceeds to buy, build, rebuild, repair, or renovate another principal home, that portion of the proceeds may be exempt from the assets test for a period of time. Under the current rules for homes sold on or after the start of 2023, that exemption can generally last for up to 24 months from settlement. In some cases, where delays are outside your control and you have been making reasonable efforts to secure the new home, the exemption can potentially be extended up to a maximum of 36 months. But this is where people misunderstand the rule. They hear that home sale proceeds are exempt and think the whole amount is automatically ignored. That is not how it works. The exemption only applies to the portion you actually intend to use for your new principal home. If you sell your house for a large amount and only part of that money is going toward the next property, the leftover amount may become assessable straight away. That extra money can start counting as a financial asset, and once that happens, it can affect your pension. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine a couple sells their fully paid-off family home for $1 million. They plan to buy a smaller unit for $650,000. That means $650,000 may potentially be treated differently from the remaining $350,000, depending on their circumstances and how the money is held and intended to be used. The amount earmarked for the next principal home may receive the temporary exemption, but the extra amount that is not going into the replacement home could be assessed as an asset. And once it is assessed, it can reduce or even eliminate pension entitlement depending on the rest of their financial position. And there is another layer that many retirees do not see coming. Even when part of the sale proceeds is temporarily exempt from the assets test, that does not always mean it is invisible under the income test. Centrelink uses deeming rules to estimate income from financial assets. For eligible home sale proceeds that are intended for the new principal home, the lower deeming rate can apply during the exemption period. But any extra proceeds held as financial assets can be assessed under the regular deeming rules. That means you may be treated as earning income from money sitting in the bank, even if the interest you are actually receiving is low. This is why some pensioners say something like, "I sold my home, but I have not even bought the next place yet, so why has my payment changed already?" The answer is that Centrelink is not only looking at what you plan to do, it is looking at how much of the money is protected under the home sale exemption, how much is not protected, and how that money fits under deeming and the pension means tests. Now let's talk about timing, because timing is everything in this area. The clock generally starts from settlement, not from the date you list the property, not from the date you move out, and not from when you start browsing new homes. From settlement. If you have sold and you are planning to buy again, you need to be very clear about your intention, your time frame, and your evidence. If Centrelink asks questions later, it helps enormously if there is a clear story. What property are you planning to buy? How much of the proceeds are allocated to it? Have you signed a contract? Are you building? Are you renovating? Have you paid a deposit? Are there delays outside your control? And this brings us to one of the biggest traps: delays. Many seniors assume that because they fully intend to buy again, the exemption will simply continue until they are ready. But life is rarely that neat. Building projects blow out, settlements collapse, renovations take longer than expected, health issues interrupt plans, family circumstances change. A retirement village place may not be available when expected. In those situations, the exemption can be incredibly valuable, but only if you meet the conditions and can show that you have been taking reasonable steps. Waiting too long without action can become a problem. Another common trap is spending the money in ways that break the original assumption. Let's say you sell the house and tell Centrelink you intend to use most of the proceeds to secure a new principal home. But 6 months later, part of that money is used for a long overseas trip, a major gift to family, or a large non-home investment. The moment your intention changes, the assessment can change too. Centrelink is not just looking at what you said once. It is looking at what actually happens. And that leads to a very sensitive issue that many families face after a home sale: helping children or grandchildren. Emotionally, it feels natural. Parents sell the family home, free up cash, and want to share some of it with loved ones. But under Centrelink rules, gifting can create serious consequences. If you give away more than the allowable gifting limits, the excess can still be counted under the means tests for years. In other words, you may no longer have the money, but Centrelink can still assess you as if you do. That is one of the harshest surprises in the system. So imagine this scenario. A pensioner sells a debt-free home, plans to downsize, and before buying again decides to give a large amount to an adult child to help them with their mortgage. The pensioner thinks, "It is my money and I am just helping family." But Centrelink may treat part of that as a deprived asset if it exceeds the gifting thresholds. That means the person could lose pension entitlement based on money they have already handed away. This is exactly why rushed decisions after settlement can be so expensive. There is also the emotional side of downsizing that people do not talk about enough. Selling a long-term home is not just a transaction. It is often tied to grief, transition, health concerns, and a search for security. In that emotional window, retirees can make fast decisions that do not line up with their long-term pension strategy. Some move into more expensive lifestyle arrangements than expected. Some park too much money in accessible accounts while deciding what to do. Some assume a retirement village entry payment works the same as buying a normal property. Some think moving in with family will automatically protect the money. These assumptions can all go wrong if the rules are not understood before the sale. Now, there is another angle here that deserves attention. Downsizer super contributions. For some older Australians, part of the sale proceeds from a home can potentially be contributed into super under the downsizer contribution rules if they meet the eligibility requirements. That can be a useful strategy in the right circumstances, but it is not a magic shield from Centrelink. Once money is in super, the Centrelink treatment depends heavily on age, pension status, and whether the super is still in accumulation phase or already supporting an income stream. So if someone tells you, just put it into super and you will be fine, be very careful. That advice may be incomplete or completely wrong for your situation. This is why the smartest retirees do not ask only one question, which is, how much can I sell for? They ask a better set of questions. How much of the proceeds will go into the next principal home? How long before I buy again? What happens if construction is delayed? Will any excess cash push me over the asset limits? How will deeming affect my income test? Am I planning to gift any money? Do I need formal financial information before settlement rather than after settlement? If you take only one lesson from this video, let it be this. A paid-off home is not assessed the same way as cash from a sold home. That is the whole game. While the property is your principal residence, it usually sits outside the assets test. Once it becomes money, the protection narrows and conditions matter. The intention behind the proceeds matters. The amount set aside for the next home matters. The timing matters. Your evidence matters. And every delay or side decision can change the outcome. So what should seniors do before selling? First, understand your current pension position before the property even hits the market. Know whether you are close to an asset threshold already. Second, estimate how much of the proceeds will actually go into your next home and how much may remain accessible. Third, think carefully before gifting or transferring money after settlement. Fourth, if you are building or renovating, keep documents that show genuine progress and reasonable attempts. And fifth, speak to Services Australia or a qualified advisor early, not after the proceeds land in your account and the payment has already changed. Because once the reassessment happens, you are no longer planning around the rules, you are reacting to them. And reacting is usually more stressful, more expensive, and harder to unwind. For many retirees, selling the family home can still be a very good move. It can reduce maintenance, free up cash flow, improve lifestyle, bring you closer to support, and make retirement more manageable. But the decision should never be based only on the sale price or the dream of a simpler life. It should also be based on what happens the day that exempt home value becomes accessible money. That is the moment Centrelink starts paying closer attention. And that is why this issue matters so much. Not because seniors should be afraid to sell, but because they deserve to make informed decisions. A home sale should be a step toward security, not a surprise trigger for pension stress. If you understand the rules before settlement, document your plans clearly, and avoid common traps, you give yourself a much better chance of protecting both your flexibility and your entitlements. So if you are an Australian senior thinking about selling your paid-off home, do not assume Centrelink will see it the same way you do. Your home may be exempt today, but the proceeds tomorrow can change everything. The difference between a smooth transition and a painful pension shock often comes down to what you know before you sign. If this video helped make sense of a confusing issue, make sure you subscribe to Centrelink Age Pension, because this channel is here to break down the rules, expose the traps, and help Australian seniors make smarter decisions with confidence. And if you know someone who is thinking about downsizing, selling the family home, or moving in retirement, send them this video now, because one conversation before settlement can be worth far more than one complaint after the payment changes. Stay informed, stay careful, and I will see you in the next one.